Assalamu alaikum. Today I will show you how to do the dynamic routing. Okay, I have already uploaded a video of static routing. This is the same network that I use for static routing, and now I will do the dynamic routing on this. Now the number of routers, the network addresses, the number of terminal devices, everything is the same that it was in the static routing. For this configuration, you can check the video of static routing as well. Now I have already configured the basic network. I have configured the PCs, their IP configuration, and I have configured the terminals as well. All right. Now the thing that's remaining, it's the routing. Now this router has the information of this subnet, this router has the information of this subnet, and this router has the information of this subnet. This router is unaware of these two subnets. So the routing is telling the router how to reach a particular subnet in the network. Alright. Now the difference between the static and dynamic routing is, in static routing, we manually enter the each subnet to each router. We have to tell the each router that what are the different network addresses that exist in the network. Only then that router can forward packets to those subnets. For example, if you remember the static routing, in this router we added the static route to this subnet and this subnet, because these two subnets are not directly connected to this router, so this router cannot forward the packet to these unless we manually enter the route to these two subnets. This is called the static routing. Now if I add one more subnet here, the subnet will be unknown to these two routers. So if I am doing the static routing, I have to manually add this subnet to these routers. If I add one more router, two routers, three routers and subnet and multiple subnets to it, if I'm doing the static routing, I have to manually add each subnet to each router so that it can forward packet to those subnets. That's not the case in dynamic routing. In dynamic routing, the routers automatically advertise their best path to the known networks. These routers will automatically send their routing table to the other routers, and the other routers will update their routing table on the basis of information they receive from other routers. Whenever the state of the network changes, for example, some link is down or some subnet is added here, so that information is added to this router. So this router will advertise that information to this router will advertise the information to this router. Both these routers will dynamically update their routing table, and that new subnet will be known to these two routers. You don't have to add the static route of the new subnet to this router and this router. No, if you are doing the dynamic routing, you will add the subnet to this router. This router will have the the information that this subnet is added. We will add it to the routing information protocol that is used for dynamic routing, and the RIP, the routing information protocol, it advertises the best path to each subnet to every other routers. ठीक है? This is called the dynamic routing. In static routing, the routing table जो होता है, whatever the routing table the router has, it is modified manually. You add the subnet manually, and then your routing table is modified. But in the case of RIP, whenever the new subnet is added, after some time, because it takes time to advertise their path and then update your routing table, it takes almost 30 seconds. So after 30 seconds, that new subnet that you have added, that will automatically be included in those two routers. ठीक है? Now we will use the RIP, routing information protocol, for this routing. The RIP uses the hop count to choose the best possible route. ठीक है? कि minimum hop count वाला जो path होता है, that is selected as the best path. And RIP uses up to can be used in a network with up to 15 hops, because hop का मतलब है in the node to node. ठीक है? Hop to hop and node to node. So it means the RIP can work if there are 15 hops, maximum 15 hops between the two subnets. If the hop is greater than 15, that is the 16, then the network is considered as infinite or unreachable. The distance is infinity or it is unreachable. Okay, now we come to the configuration part. Okay, first let's see this router. knows only two networks. ठीक है? Here I have the subnet of 10.0, 20.0 and 30.0. So this router has no information about 20 and 30.0, so it cannot forward the packets. You see, if you try to send packets to any subnet, it will be failed. Now we will do the dynamic routing, and then we will see if the routing table has been modified or not. Okay. In routing table, in doing the dynamic routing, the following commands are used. First, we enable the router, then config T. Then we tell the router that we are going to configure the router. We are going to configure RIP on the router. So the command that is used is router RIP. RIP stands for Routing Information Protocol. All right. Then we add the network. The difference here is in static routing, we add all the subnets that are not directly connected to the router. But in dynamic routing, we only add the subnets that are directly connected to the router. Directly connected routers की information we add to the routers, and that router then advertise that information to other, and everyone then knows that which network is reachable by which interface. Okay, the command that is used is same, the network, and we will write the network address of directly connected network. The network address is 192.168.10.0. 192.168.10.0. Alright, only this subnet is connected here. Exit. Now we will go to the second router. The second router has again enable config T router RIP, and what is the directly connected network? 20.0. So we will add network 192.168.20.0. Exit. And here we will add enable show IP route, config T router RIP, and then network 30.0, 192.168.30.0. Exit. So these are the commands that are used for configuring the routing information protocol. I added the subnets to the routing information protocol, but we need to add all the directly connected networks of the router to its routing information protocol. So for this router, there are two networks connected. One is 192.168.10.0 and the second one is 10.0.0.0. So we need to add both the networks, all the networks that are connected to the router. Config T router RIP network 10.0.0.0. Exit. Because the network is reachable through this interface and through this network. Okay, so we need to also add this path as well. Now for this router, we have added the subnet, this one. We also need to add these two networks to the routing information protocol. Config T router RIP network. This one is also already added. 10 and 11 wala add karna hai. 10.0.0.0 network 11.0.0.0. Exit. And the last is config T router RIP network. Which one is it? Is connected with the 11 network, so I will add 11.0.0.0 exit. Okay, after configuration, you have to wait for a minute or two so that the routers exchange the messages. The routers can advertise their routes, the routes that has been added by RIP, so that they can advertise these routes to each other, and then each router can update its routing table on the basis of new information that is received by other routers, and only then when it has all the networks, all the subnets known, only then it can send packets. So at start it won't. Oh, it's already done. See, now the messages are successful. Now you can also see the routing table as well. Now I open this, show IP route. Now you know I haven't added those 10, 20 and 30, these subnets to this router. Alright, I haven't added those to the router, but they are visible here. Why? Because the other routers advertises their routes to this router and it updated its routing table. If you can see, when we did it using the static routing, the word it is represented by S, static routing. But now we are doing it with the RIP. You can see it here. When we are using the routing information protocol, it is displayed by R. R means routing information protocol, and this is done by dynamic routing. This router knows the network 10 and 10.0 and 10.0.0.0. All the other networks 20.0, 30.0 and this 11 network are accessible via dynamic routing. So this is called dynamic routing. Now if you add another router, another subnet, you don't have to add the paths or the route to each router. You will just add the subnet that you newly added to the router, and that subnet is added to the router using RIP, and then that router will automatically advertise the path to this router and this router and this router, and all these routers will automatically update their routing table, and that subnet will be reachable to every router in the network. That's all. This is called the dynamic routing. Thank you.